Alasdair, I'm going to start with you. You've worked on the UK Construction Playbook, which Melissa also made mention of. What does that set out to achieve in terms of, and again, frame it around this discussion of digital transformation?
So just to give a bit of background, the playbook arose from similar challenges that we saw gave light to Project 13, in as far as the UK construction industry wasn't operating as effectively as it could. Projects were being delivered late, there were quality issues, but also there was this huge opportunity to just do things better, adopt new technologies, adopt digitalization. So I'm not going to go on at great length about it, but ultimately the Construction Playbook is the new rules for how public sector customers in the UK can go about delivering construction work. It actually, although it's supposed to be for public sector bodies, everything in it is equally applicable to anybody that's going out and buying construction activity in the market. It's built around 14 key policies, so I'm going to very quickly run through what they are. The first is around publication of commercial pipelines. So that is letting the market know what work is going to be coming so they can better plan, they can bring in resource, they can innovate to meet that demand, they can recruit new people. The second is to carry out a market health assessment. So to make sure that before you bring work to market, checking that the market is interested in the work that you bring to the market and has the capability to deliver it. The third is about portfolios and longer term contracting. So this is really looking at instead of procuring projects on a case-by-case basis, can you package them up into longer-term programs of activity that, again, drive innovation, drive investment in better ways of delivery? Crucial to what we're talking about today, there's two priorities around harmonizing, digitalizing, and rationalizing demand, and embedding digital technologies. So making digital at the heart of projects right from the start, because we know that if you try and retrofit digital into projects, it's much harder to extract all of the benefits that you would hope to see. The seventh priority is the outcome-based approach. Instead of saying we want it to cost X, it's going to be about what do we actually want to achieve? What do we value in terms of the projects that we're delivering? Linked to that, we have benchmarking and should cost modelling. So with this, we want to say an understanding of, we've done these things before, we should know what they're going to cost. We should have figures for the kinds of value that we're going to extract from the projects to deliver, rather than just hoping for the best when we set out. To also help achieve that, the ninth priority is around delivery model assessments. We shouldn't always try and do things the same way. We should match the model that we're going to deliver to the nature of those outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And again, linked to that, we should have effective contracting. We should use our contracts in a way that bring the whole of the supply chain together rather than setting them against each other. And that includes making sure that everyone gets paid promptly and to the amount that they're supposed to be paid, and that people aren't just paid for, in essence, people doing a job that's not necessarily adding value, but that they are actually paid for the value that they provide to the project. Again, part of all of this is better risk allocation. We know that where projects go wrong, it's often because the risk is placed with the wrong party, whether that's the wrong risk sitting with the client, whether that's the wrong risk sitting with the designer or the main contractor, or the wrong risk sitting in the supply chain. So if we can do that more effectively, we'll get better risk allocation, fewer conflicts, and better delivery. I've touched upon payment and pricing, but making sure that people get paid the right amount for what they do is fundamental to the playbook. And the final two policies relate to the economic and financial standing of suppliers. This is before you even get into a relationship, making sure that those companies are financially robust. It's not about saying you can't work with companies that have financial challenges, but if they do, it's about what are your plans to ensure that where things go wrong, you've got plans in place to address that. And that leads to the final point. It is around resolution planning. So in the worst case, that even if your assessment of financial standing fails, you've got resolution plans in place, in essence, living wills for how you make sure that the project continues, even in the event that there is a failure of the supply chain.
So, Anas, now you contributed to the construction playbook. Are there aspects that we could use here in this region? And also, what other kinds of developments are happening, and initiatives are happening over here, again, in the frame of digital transformation?
The playbook came in to address a number of challenges that we have within the industry, and this is quite clear now for a lot of agencies in the government, and clearly the way the playbook was developed in the UK, as Melissa mentioned, it's a combination between government, industry, and academia working together, and it's really good to see that Project 13 is actually living that kind of document and taking it to the next step. Now, in terms of the kind of things that's happening here in this region, it's quite similar. It's driven by the government. They realize that there is a lot of issues that we have within the industry, mainly that they need to drive productivity and performance when it comes to construction. This will help them to manage the cost of projects, but also manage the time and quality within their projects that they fund as government entity, and this will be translated into the private entity, which we also see in the UK happening already. The other challenge the government wants to address is sustainability. Now, finally, sustainability has been one of the biggest issues that we need to deal with within the construction industry. We realize that we need to do it collectively in the right way, and hence why there's a lot of efforts that's been driven through in the UK, but also in this region, especially within the UAE, in regards to manage and achieve sustainability targets through addressing certain challenges within the construction industry, because it does contribute to quite a lot of percentage when it comes to carbon emissions, but also sustainability is not just about the green and the carbon emissions, it's a lot more than that, and that's been addressed. And the last but not least is well-being and health and safety. That's another challenge that we have within the construction industry. It's no news to anyone, so that's something that's been addressed here in this region. And one of the things that's been, I know there's a lot of conversations that's been talked about, the playbook and how can we mirror something similar in the UAE, which is something that's been talked about and discussed at high level. But also there's a few things that's been developed here quite uniquely for UAE in particular. There is the development of something called the National Smart Construction Guidelines. Now, it's a big document. It's not it's not as described by Alasdair in a few minutes. It's something that you would take a few hours to describe what it is. But it is quite a big document. But the purpose of that document is really to break down what the challenges are, what the opportunities are, and then hopefully that will translate into certain documents similar to the playbook, and hopefully will be translated on programs similar to Project 13. So it's quite interesting what's happening in the UK. We are keeping a close eye towards what's happening there, but also Australia and Singapore and etc. And trying to not mimic, but see how we can do something in this region that will suit what we're doing here.
Okay, so Sam, now digital transformation, and I think it was really touched upon in the last panel as well. You know, it can be a big investment for private companies. How do you give them the confidence that they're making the right moves, and what kind of returns do they expect to see?
The demand side of things is so important in construction, because we know we have so many solutions to do things massively better in construction, to improve the quality of our outputs, to transform the productivity in the construction sector. But we need to have that confidence given to companies that the demand is really going to be there for these techniques. And that's where government plays such a significant role. So with the playbook, you've got the government of the UK, which, as it happens, spends, well, depending on where you put the boundaries, maybe 40 billion a year on construction. That's giving confidence to the market that you've got to do these things. You'll frankly be excluded from work with the government if you don't do these things. But then on the plus side, on the if that's the stick, the carrot is that if you apply these techniques, you achieve these phenomenal steps forward in terms of productivity and quality and energy performance that we know is possible for the industry. And that translates to bottom line gains for the companies. You know, if projects can be delivered with double or quadruple, which is I've seen in many cases, the levels of productivity that are standard in the industry, that has a fantastic effect on return on investment.
Melissa, you talked about Project 13's principles. How do they help unlock the potential of digitalization in the industry and enable that digital transformation?
Because it is about allowing the people that have the solutions to bring the solutions to the table. So I think that the big difference with Project 13, the reason it's an enabler, is because all the capable owner does is to say, this is the outcome that we're trying to achieve. And then it turns through the integrator to the market, and it could even be outside construction. So it could be in manufacturing, it could be in the digital, it could be somewhere, and says to them, what is the best way to achieve this outcome? And so then people can come to that and say, here are some things that we've invented. It could be somebody in a garage somewhere who's invented something, which is the answer to the problem. And so Project 13 is more open in that way. Therefore, it also helps things like SMEs, because it has that opportunity for people to bring their ideas and to work with the capable owner, to work with the other partners in the integrator to achieve the outcome, rather than them coming and saying, this is a solution that we've decided on, this is what we want you to do, can you tell us what's the lowest cost that you can do it for, and then having a competition at that level.
Jesus, in terms of what clients are asking for, now, how are you working with them on a practical level to enable digital transformation, and what benefits are you trying to unlock?
We are extremely focused on sustainability, and when we say that, I know sustainability is overused nowadays as a word. We are carbon neutral company since 2016. At this moment, by the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, we are the second most sustainable company in the world. So we invest a lot in digital transformation, and we have done it since pretty much the beginning, when 3G started. Now we are approaching 5G. So the way that we see it, obviously, is we need to provide a profit, a benefit to the site, wherever we go. And that should also be having an impact on the CO2 footprint to reduce the CO2 footprint of our projects. So ultimately, what basically the digital transformation, in our view, is doing is having and improve the control on the project that you are delivering, and the processes, the progress, the resources, where are them, how are they utilized, and anyone working on this field of digital transformation just sees the project as a data feeder. I think one of the most important quotes I can say, message I would like to say, the data is out there. It's just make a good use of it. Try to make the best use of the data. Today, we have 5G, we have 4.0 revolution, we have IoT, machine learning, data, big data, everything. Let's make use of it. So in our case, I'll give you a few examples. For example, in Saudi Arabia, and again, what Sam was saying is true, we have to have a stick and a carrot. The compelling force may come from the clients, which is happening. That's a good news in the GCC. I'll give you an example. ACCIONA is a main contractor in the Dubai Metro Route 2020 that goes to the Expo. It's from RTA, from Dubai, and they were actually requesting high levels of digital systems like BIM, level 2 or more, and they're pushing us. But I know what Melissa will say, that it's just information management. Let's go one step beyond. So we took the tunneling boring machine, which is 4 kilometers of tunnels in this metro with 2 underground stations, and we used digital transformation. We used drones to really survey the tunnel. We used a software in ACCIONA. It's tunneling boring machine data, where you can actually monitor the shield, the head of the TBM, to avoid stops. You also control the safety. There's more than 2,000 parameters with sensors that we have as we were drilling, and that improves the pilot. The pilot has to make the right decisions, but not only the right decisions on the right time, the right moment, and that only is allowed when you have real-time flow of information. Again, back to the water solution, we used in Al Khobar 2 by the SWCC in Saudi Arabia, a digital twin by which, and you have to start that at the very beginning, at the detailed design of the project, when you're awarded a design and build of the desalination plant. In this case, it's a reverse osmosis desalination plant. We started at the very beginning. Then, by the time COVID came, and we were not able to fly in and out engineers for the testing and commissioning, thanks to this digital twin. In other words, it's a digital representation of the asset. That gives you a lot of power, not only, as some people think, by remote controlling each and every valve, smart meter, flow meter, pumps, engines, everything on the plant, because in the end, a seawater desalination plant nowadays is a robot. It's a robot with no legs, but it's a robot. So imagine the power when you have a digital twin from the beginning. You could do a testing and commissioning, which only a few people that were locked in Saudi Arabia and everywhere in the world, because you cannot fly in and out people. And we were able to do the testing and commissioning on time. And then, once you have the digital twin of an asset, I think the most powerful advantage is you can play with the asset. You can integrate satellite data of the water, the seawater actually input in the reverse osmosis desalination plant. What is the water temperature that day and that moment of the day? What is the salinity? Is there any jellyfish infestation? Is there any black tides from oil spillages? Is there any red tides, algae bloom? Whatever it is, you will adapt on real time all our system, all the high pressure pumps exactly to the sweet spot to make, and all the chemical dosages to adapt and be more efficient on that water production that same day.
So Sam, turning to you, now that before we ran this panel, I had a chat with you, and you were talking about seeing two important changes, a move to product platform approach and a shift from cheapest wins to taking more of a value-focused approach. So explain what you meant by both of those.
Okay, in terms of the value approach, and I think we've heard a little bit about this morning already, really focusing on what we're trying to achieve with our built assets. The construction industry, and I think this is a global phenomenon, has been obsessed with lowest capital cost of delivery of an asset, rather than thinking, what are we building for? Are we building for hospitals that are going to make people recover more quickly, or schools that are going to provide better educations? These are the things we've got to focus on. And certainly in the UK, we've done a lot of work now on providing models and tools to help with value-based procurement. This is picked up by the Construction Playbook, so it's pulled through in that way. But really helping clients make intelligent and informed decisions about the value of the asset that they're trying to create. And the benefits of this are huge, because if you really take into account these value issues, you massively bring down the cost of running of the asset, certainly in terms of energy costs. It helps you focus on the societal benefits of the buildings that you're creating. Now, a lot of these things are happening, I think, sort of incidentally in terms of what we've built historically, but if you're much more explicit about it, I think you can really make better use of the investments and the efforts that you put into these things. And I mean, certainly here in Dubai, we've got some fantastic examples of spectacular architecture. And I think those are the things that we want people to focus on and really see the value in those. Now, moving on to the second point, which is the product platform approach to buildings. We've seen in other sectors, in manufacturing sectors, and I don't know if you'd have noticed one of Melissa's graphs there showing the flatlining productivity in construction compared to improvements in productivity in other sectors. And probably the biggest driver of improvements in productivity in other sectors has been this product platform approach, where you treat an asset, an object, as a kit of parts with interoperable parts that can be manufactured really efficiently in factories, probably, not entirely, but really introducing these efficiencies to the creation of the built assets. And people worry about too much uniformity in the built environment if we take this approach. But in reality, the results are really, really good when you go down this route. You can bespoke your assets in some ways, but at core, you're using the power and efficiency of product platform approaches to drive much better outcomes, with regards to just about everything that we create.
And that's, again, looking at a little bit more at the value-based approach now. Is that something that, well, how hard will that be to introduce over here? What kind of criteria need to be in place in procurement processes?
We certainly need to change the way we look at projects. And again, I'm going to refer to Melissa's slides where you see the project is a change in the way we would contract. That's maybe one of the things that they would look into. Going to the product base, again, it needs a mind shift. Procurement to start off with, but it's not just about procurement. It's about the processes, it's about the procedures. It's about the protocols that we have within, not just within projects, the funding schemes that we have. So that's all these kind of stuff that we are actually looking at the moment as part of an initiative. But it's not easy answer, to be honest with you. That's why I'm a little bit struggling to give you maybe in the next 6 months I can give you an answer to this. But we are looking at a number of things that would help us from procurement all the way to delivery and after that as well.
Okay.
And it doesn't just include, we're not just pointing the finger at the clients or the government as a client entity, or the manufacturers or the contractors or consultants. We also talking to the banks. They're the ones who are doing the funding. They need to maybe change the way they look at things. We're looking at the occupants, their behaviours, the end users, and etc. So there's a number of things that we need to look into to make sure that we can make that change.
Okay, so it's a very broad process,
Absolutely.
really. So Melissa, just turning to you, a simple question, I guess. Can an organisation truly embrace digital transformation if it doesn't build those long-term relationships with suppliers?
I think it's difficult, and I think you're not going to get the full benefits. And I also think it's the future. So I think the competitive edge for the future, but at the moment, maybe a competitive edge in the future, will be survival. I think that you need to go through a digital transformation. So I don't think it's a cascade thing. I don't think it needs to come from government and then go through the clients and then go through the suppliers and et cetera, et cetera. I think it's that what we're talking about is that everybody needs to go through a digital transformation to survive, to be competitive in future. Because what you heard in that, what I was saying in Project 13 and the integrator is that when they're procuring for partners, they'll be looking for partners that have already got digital capability, rather than trying to sort of help them to get up to speed. But as everyone's been saying, it's difficult to invest in that to invest in your digitalization if you're not secure about having future work. So I think it's that balance. It's that knowing that you're in a long-term relationship means that you're more willing to invest, and that leads to sustainability. But I would also say that we should all be taking all the steps that we can. A lot of this is about people. Digital transformation is about people having the right skills, tools and capabilities. So you can be working on that now.
Alasdair, turning to you. Now, you talked about your 14 recommendations. What sort of reception did you get? I mean, were there some where people kind of railed against them or pushed back harder?
In terms of how the market has responded to this, bear in mind this was co-created with industry, so a lot of the stuff that was in there was supported because it had been consulted with, and people had been allowed to put their thoughts in as to what those key policies should be. So I think it landed quite well. I think the real thing from the market was more a question of, yes, but are you really going to do some of these things? Because there is a long track record in industry of reports being published but change not really happening. So I think the good response to that is actually we've seen some really positive change already within those large public sector organisations that buy construction in the UK. They are really taking this seriously, and it is driving some of the change. Some of the stuff that Sam and Melissa has talked about. That is, it's not. It might happen in the future. It's happening today on real life projects, and some of those efficiencies, some of that productivity improvement is demonstrably happening.
Yeah, if I can just comment on this. There's been a lot of support and enthusiasm for these principles of the construction playbook in the industry, but it's a huge industry. The client base is very diverse. If you think of the government, it's not one completely coherent entity. You've got different departments that are procuring buildings in different parts of the country and so forth. So there's absolute enthusiasm and buy-in at the top level that this is the right thing to do. But policing it and enforcing it, making sure that there's real follow-through is absolutely vital in making this this kind of thing stick. And you know that is taking and will take a lot of ongoing diligence.
No, you had a question?
I'm curious, what's the background of the title Project 13? Why did you call it Project 13?
Go on, Melissa.
That's one.
I know the answer to this, so...
This is a good lesson. So as we're nearing the end, we can end on a lesson, because the infrastructure client group, I showed you, it focuses just on 5 things. And I showed you how those 5 things are in the construction playbook, they're in transforming industry performance, the Construction Leadership Council. We've got it down to 5 key levers that will bring about industry transformation. The infrastructure client group was on a journey to do that. At that point, it had a list of about 20 to 25 things that it was working on. And Project 13 was the 13th project. And so I'm afraid that there's no other reason for it being called that, except that it was the 13th project. But I do think it is a good lesson to us all that you shouldn't be focusing on 20, 25 things. That we now know that there are these core things that will bring about the biggest levers to change. So it's a good journey that we've been on. And then everyone loves Project 13 because they all say, what is it? And so from a branding point of view, everyone said, no, stick with it, keep it.
The other question is, when you rolled out the construction playbook, what are some of the compelling challenges that you could share with the Middle East market, especially with Dr. Anas, as we embark on hopefully bringing that to the Middle East, so that we could learn from it and educate basically the supply chain about it?
The key thing is to ensure that you've got the capability to deliver. Now, the playbook is a fantastic example of what should be done in order to achieve much better outcomes for projects. In order to deliver on these outcomes, you've got to have an industry that's capable of doing it. You've got to think about skills, you've got to think about investment in digital, you've got to think about investment in manufacturing techniques and so forth. I'm sure Jesus has got some more sort of on-the-ground experience of this.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, well, actually, in the Middle East, as you know very well, there's the workforce is very, very multinational, and you come from all kind of creeds and cultures. So you will have a barrier. You will have a barrier to introduce these solutions, digital transformation solutions, and you have to jump up that barrier. Will not be easy. You have to invest in the field tests. You have to get a reliable, but in the end, the most important is to create a tangible benefit to the people on the project. They will not care if it's coming from AI or not AI. They want to see a reliable data management that gives them benefit and tangible benefit. Only then you can go through. But obviously we have very high professionals in this part of the world, and what we are seeing from all the desalination plants, we have a huge photovoltaic plant in the region, 800 megawatts. We have the metro in Dubai, many projects, and we are able to implement those and overcome those barriers because there's actual benefits on the tools that we implement and the solutions.